Hello, everyone. Welcome here today. Thank you for being here. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the waiting room to continue to admit people, but we're excited to get started. For those who don't know me, I am Tom Malingo, one of the co-founders of Brandjectory, along with my lovely wife, Susan Bryanton, who's listening in here somewhere. Welcome here today. I'm really excited about having Sergio and Karina here. I met Sergio, going on about 10, 11 months ago was first contact I had with Sergio. We started talking about having him and folks from Census in here to talk to you about building your brand's public image. A little bit different than simply talking about messaging and how you message the consumer. A bit more about how you present your brand, and I'm excited about this. I think it's a great topic. And I met Karina about a month or so ago, and we had a chance to talk. So I think it's going to be an exciting event. We have folks on here who don't know about Brandjectory. If you don't know about Brandjectory, what we are is we are a platform for emerging brands in the CPG industry, the kinds of brands you'd find at Whole Foods, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, or any specialty store, under 10 million in sales, food, beverage, health, wellness, alcohol, non-alc, pet, beauty, personal care, intimate care. All those types of brands are on Brandjectory and have been on Brandjectory. And what we help with is education, engagement, and exposure to the industry with investors and industry experts, providing the knowledge you need to build a strong business and the contacts and engagement you need to find your way to fundraising and have a business that investors want to invest in. We have always have about 100 brands on the platform. We have about 800 investors in our network, 200 or more who participate in our meetups and our networking sessions and our virtual meetings, and 100 or so, probably 200 experts we call on for mentoring and coaching and problem solving sessions. Everything we do is online, it's all virtual, and there's a series of monthly meetings that cover everything from fundraising labs to legal labs to we have one coming up on trade spend. We have webinars like this, practice pitch sessions, problem solving sessions with industry experts, founder only chats. There's people on the line who are part of Brandjectory. If you have questions, just reach out. You can reach me at tom@brandjectory.com or susan@brandjectory.com. And I will be putting all that information in the chat soon so you can have it if you'd like to reach out later. As for Karina and Sergio, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to pass this over to them. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. I will be monitoring the questions. If we'll try to wait till the end, and we'll allow time for questions at the end. But get your questions in there so we have a chance to make sure we get them handled. And I will be putting Sergio and Karina's information into the chat too, along with the census website, so everyone can have a chance to make sure that if they need to connect or want to connect, they have that opportunity. So with that, that's my intro to all of this. I'm going to pass it over to Karina and Sergio to take it from here, and thank them very much for being here today. And we all appreciate the opportunity to hear from you. So with that, please take it away.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Tom. And thanks again, Tom and Susan, for the opportunity. Karina and I are super excited about spending the next 40 minutes or so with you. We've presented a great presentation to give you an overview of our background, how to go about doing things for your product, for your brand, if you will. And then we're going to leave some time at the end for some questions. Best thing about this is both Karina and I are passionate about the space, and we're very passionate about marketing. So you'll hear that throughout the presentation. So with that, why don't we go to the next slide? Without a shadow of a doubt, it's a super exciting time to be in the CPG food and beverage space. And you know it, you're living it day to day, but here's a quick synopsis of what's been going on, right? The consumer is really demanding a lot more innovation, more flavors, more formats, a lot more functional benefits, right? And it ranges from everything, whether plant-based meats or adaptogenic drinks. The consumer is a lot more adventurous than before, okay? Combined with that, there's also a health and wellness boom. And many of you are in spaces that are really leveraging that and taking advantage of that. So anything that's good for you, that's both tasty and good for you, it's really making a dent, and it's really making an inroad, both on the consumer side, but obviously on the retail and distribution side as well. And again, this is everything from low sugar and gluten-free and so on and so forth. Number three, no surprise here, sustainability and ethics matter. They matter in a way that they haven't in a while, and it's been consistent and continued, if you will, right? People want to know where the food is from, how it's made, what the sourcing is all about. Okay, so that might be another element that really defines or helps to define the differentiation, the specialness about you and your product or beverage or what have you. And what has really changed the game? Technology. Technology and e-commerce are making this a lot more reachable and approachable with social media, direct to consumer, ghost kitchens and everything involved in delivery platforms. So it's there and it's available. And believe it or not, capital funding is available, whether it's from everything from angel investing to much more VCs or what have you. CPG is really considered a recession-proof business, if you will. Yes, it's capital intensive, but it's needed because people need to eat and there's variety in all of that. So that continues to be. And of course, in 2025, we live in a diverse, multicultural world, and all of that is being celebrated. Food, ethnicities, nationalities, and all of that is a great way for things to come through. And obviously, you've read and you've seen about the corporates have gotten in on the action, specifically PepsiCo. Poppy and Siete Foods have made significant inroads the last 6 months with them being acquired by them. And so there's an exit. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. If we go to the next slide, we just wanted to give you a really quick background about us. I've been a strategic marketer, BD, and partnership guy for the last 20 years or so. Originally from Mexico City, spent some time on the West Coast, now in Miami. And I've had the gamut of experience from advertising agencies to media companies to startups and all of that. And certainly, I've been mentoring many different types of companies, emerging brands like yours over the years on a local, national, and international perspective. But what really cemented for me the CPG space is my time with Kuli Kuli. Some of you may remember Kuli Kuli. This is the premium Moringa brand in Northern California, started by Lisa Curtis. In many ways, I grew up with them. I found them at a time a couple of years ago when they needed to know a lot more about the consumer. And so that was my role. Talk to consumers, find out what's good, what's not working, and so on and so forth. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And the last logo that you see there, I'm also part of the Angel Group. Some of you may be familiar with it. They specialize in funding emerging CPG food and beverage companies. So if any of you want to talk a little bit more about that, delighted to. Karina?
Hi, everyone. Karina Diehl here. Very excited for this presentation. Thank you for that intro, Sergio. I am the Managing Director of Amplification at Census. Amplification is basically everything that is earned when it comes to the marketing mix, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that in a bit. But I began my career about 25 years ago on the agency side. Some of the bigger ones like Burson and Edelman with major accounts. These are global agencies. I've also spent some time on the client side as well, of course, in the CPG space with Molson Coors. I'm still consider myself a High Life girl and love Miller Lite. And of course, I worked at IBM as well, primarily in communications and community engagement for their Latin American brands. I went to University of Miami, go Hurricanes. I've taught at Miami-Dade College. I've lectured there, I should say. And last, I'm Cuban American, based here in South Florida, having spent some time in beautiful Chicago as well, big CPG town. And the last logo that you see there is the Latino Hive. It's a group of professionals from across the country that meet annually. Some of us are investors, some of us are inventors, and we are all in the professional space, be it client side or agency side, and we happen to be Hispanic. And yes, it's basically a networking organization. So that's us. And I'll keep this going, Sergio.
Unmute.
Look at that. Thank you. Thanks for that. We are a strategic cultural marketing agency, and we are headquartered in Los Angeles with offices in Austin, Atlanta, and Washington, D.C. We've been in business for 26 years, and we're full service. We do soup to nuts, but really what makes us different is we're strategy and research led. So that's really the foundation of how we approach everything for our clients, and we're very data centric and data metrics oriented. And we're very proud to have received the Inc. 5000 honoree for the last 12 years. So let's get to what we are here to do and to discuss, right? So basically, we live in a very, very complicated world, right? There's a lot of distractions. It's information heavy, and we all carry massive computers in our pockets or in our front or in our hands on a 24/7 basis, right? So creating, nurturing, and curating your brand and taking care of your image is a lot harder. It takes a lot more effort, right? But with that, at the end of the day, you really want to consider for yourself, is what you're doing and the efforts that you're going forward, are you discoverable? Can people find you when they need to find you, right? Are you really trustworthy? And are you consistent and disciplined in the way that people see and define that trustworthy, that integrityness? And lastly, are you memorable? Are people going to remember you inside or outside the grocery store as they're browsing through their app or what have you?
So moving on to what is a brand? So I've always liked this quote from Philip Kotler. He's a professor at Kellogg at Northwestern. A brand is a name, term, sign, symbol, or design, or a combination of them, intended to identify the goods or services of one seller or group of sellers and to differentiate them from those of competitors. So it feels like a big definition here. A name, a sign, a symbol, the design, the combination of it all. We're going to break down a little bit what a brand actually is and how to build awareness for your brand. So a brand, I like to say, is a lens. It's a lens by which how we see a certain product, right? It's the image that we project to communicate what it is that we're selling, right? Pretty simple. A brand today is a lens that adds to or subtracts from the value of your product or service or your reputation. So it's that first view, right, of what you're selling. It also adds emotion. So we all know that we have brands that we love. Think about your favorite sports teams. Think about certain products that you've probably purchased your whole life that you'll never stray from. There's some emotion in there, right? There's some passion behind a brand. In the CPG world, we often say that brands are a badge, kind of identifies you a little bit. Do you drink Miller Lite or are you drinking Bud Light? Are you drinking craft beer or are you drinking non-alcoholic beer? This really defines you as a person, and for a long time, consumers have been identifying with brands. Think about fashion and some of the other areas as well. So a brand, again, is a lens that adds to or subtracts from the value of your product or service and your reputation, and it also adds emotion. What is a brand today? So it's a nuanced, complex market. Sergio, I know you've had a lot of experience in this space. Why don't you talk a little bit about how complex the world is right now when it comes to brands?
No, absolutely. And, the consumer's a lot pickier. They're a lot finickier, right? And it's about customization and finding a way to stand out, but being as inclusive in an exclusive kind of way. Inclusive in an exclusive kind of way, right? So some people are going to go straight for the gluten-free because a whole host of reasons. Maybe they're medically, but maybe they just feel better after the workout, or they hear that it's a cleaner type of lifestyle. The same thing with non-GMO. That where are the ingredients coming from and how they're being sourced. And the best way to talk about this is really in the sense of, in many ways, it's almost like if you can find your product in Whole Foods and it's been vetted by Whole Foods, it has the Whole Foods advantage, the seal of approval, if you will, and that it demotes a certain level of understanding and credibility and integrity. So you want to think about that in terms of what your particular brand, your product, you know, how does that relate in general, but then specifically within the audiences, right? Is there a nuance with geography, the difference between the Northeast or a West Coast? Is it the demographically, Gen X versus Gen Z or millennials, men and women, of course? And how does this play all within the lens of uh, culture, right? Is culture in? Is culture out? And there's pros and cons to both, right? And then, of course, lastly, there's just a lot more options for the consumer to choose where to buy and how to sample and how to go about doing it. So every single time that you're out there, digitally or in person, it's really a perception, an image. It's your total ambassadorial persona, if you will, right? So you have to take time to understand it, to nurture it, and to feed it appropriately.
I should say too that culture doesn't only apply to heritage. Some cultural considerations, for example, think of, someone that that lives in Oregon versus another person that lives in New York, what they care about, what they do on a day-to-day basis, some of the brands that they are tied to. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to cultural considerations. Generations is also tied into there as well. There's a difference, there's something cultural that mixes in with a Gen Xer versus a millennial too. So those are some of the things to think about also. And as we move forward, I know a lot of you are looking at investors and speaking to investors. So I wanted to differentiate what your mission is versus what your brand is. Your mission is why your business exists. You're filling a hole in the market. You're answering a question for your audience. You are meeting a consumer demand, right? That's your mission. Your brand is how your business is perceived. So when you're talking to VCs or angel investors or whomever, you want to talk to them about your mission and why your brand works here and why your product works here. When you're at the farmer's market and you're in store or you're trying to get into Whole Foods, you're talking about your brand. And you want to make sure that the person across from you is understanding how you want them to perceive your brand. So just something I wanted to call out in particular for this audience as we look at mission versus brand. It's two different things. So building a marketing plan. What does this look like? And what are the benefits of building a marketing plan? And when I say build a marketing plan, I mean really sit down, spend some time, think about this, whiteboard, do whatever it is you need to do. Because a marketing plan can help you captivate your audience. It helps you create that emotional connection. Remember, we've talked about brands and how people feel about them. This is how you're going to figure out how to differentiate yourself in such a complex and busy marketplace. And it's also going to help you define how you're going to leave a lasting impression. So you'll do that. You'll differentiate yourself and you'll leave a lasting impression through your strategy. Which is something we'll talk about a little bit more coming up.
And one important thing to consider as well is that you got to think of your marketing plan as a living, breathing thing. Okay, it's not static. You're not going to type it out and you send it to FedEx and laminate it and it's going to be there for the next 6 years. It's not. It should last for a while, but you need to be open and ready to modify it and change it as market conditions change, as you learn more about your customers, as you learn more from your retailers, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. That's a good point, Sergio. And an example there is at Census with a lot of our clients, as we are doing advertising, especially digital and online, we can pretty quickly figure out when ads are working and when they aren't. Usually takes a couple of weeks, but our media buying staff will take a look at that on a regular basis. And if they start to see, oh, you know what, this isn't working on this site, have not gotten enough engagement here, we switch it around. We do something different. Or if we see that digital is not working at all, then all right, let's go back to the drawing board. How else can we reach our consumer? So constantly have to be on top of your marketing plan, testing it, revising it, and seeing what's working and what isn't. But how, right? How do you build a marketing plan? So this is pretty basic. Objectives, goals, strategies, tactics. Tried and true, will never let you down, stick with it, it works. And before you do all of that, make sure you understand who your audience is. So for purposes of today, we kind of created a scenario, right? We're going to reach 18 to 35-year-old professional women who prioritize health and wellness. So if you think about it, these are women who wake up early in the morning, go to the gym before working. They care about their, is Angela on our presentation? I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Sergio, you're on mute.
I can see it.
It's artistic integrity. It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. I'm moving my screen and it's doing that. Sorry.
You have
That's
magical
okay.
powers, Angela. Thank you.
Yeah. I was trying to zoom in.
Oh, you'll be getting, you can, get a copy of this, and there's a recording, of course, so you'll be able to see it then too. So when it comes to your objectives and how are they different from your goals, your objectives are, what do you want to achieve? So that's that big statement, right? Be the top selling protein packed energy drink in the Southeast. That's the example. What are your goals? I always say the goals are when the numbers come in. Goals are measurable and they're on a timeline. So increase revenue by 10% in 2025, increase retail store count by 12% in 18 months, increase social media following by 25% in 2025, and increase online sales by 10% in 2025 are examples of goals. So that's the difference there, right? Objectives is like the headline. It's what you want to get to, what you want to achieve. And goals are always measurable and set on a timeline. Okay. When it comes to strategy, how will you do this? And this isn't the day-to-day, I'm going to buy ads. That's what tactics are. The strategy is really, how are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to leave a lasting impression? So for this one, in reaching these 18 to 35-year-old professional women who prioritize health and wellness, we're going to focus on bold design that really caters to this audience. We're going to talk about our product being expert endorsed. That's something that's maybe unique to us or differentiates us a little bit from the competition. And it's all natural, and it's a nutritious time saver. Again, catering to our audience. Hopefully we've done the research. We know that our audience cares about clean products and where these products are made and the ingredients. And we know that time saver is extremely important for this crowd. And then we go to tactics. So tactics are actions. Strategy is the how, tactics are the actions. And that's where advertising, public relations, social media, networking, all the nitty-gritty details, that's what the tactics are. Okay. So how do you implement, right? Because we've talked about the plan. We've got our overview. Now, how do you go to market? Well, I always like to use the PESO model. This is a really easy to understand approach. It's a really easy model. Your strategic plan, as you can see here, is at the center of it. PESO stands for paid, earned, shared, and owned. And you have some examples here of what those are. And I'm going to walk through each of these. It can be a little confusing. And as you can see, this is a Venn diagram. There is some overlap. So there is some blurring. But at the end of the day, you're building a plan that meets all of this. Some of these pillars are for the long term, and some are for the short term. So maybe you need to sell product by the end of next quarter because you've got something new that you want to launch. Well, maybe paid is the best approach there to really drive consumers to your site to buy product. Earned, I would say, is maybe a little more long-term. This is about building your reputation. This is, building your reputation, right? And getting your brand out there. Shared, I'd say the same as long-term as well. These are also areas that take a little longer. So shared is networking, social media, it's influencer engagement. Both earned and shared, they have a long runway. And owned is something you can do tomorrow if you wanted to. This is your own content. It's newsletters, it's case studies, it's your website. It's how you present your brand to market on your own terms. Okay. So just to get into this a little bit more, paid. This one is pretty straightforward, right? Paying for awareness. So buying ads, paying influencers to talk about your product, boosting content on social media, sponsoring an event, for example. What it's not is a huge advertising budget. You don't need a huge advertising budget to say that you have a paid approach. You could maybe just boost your normal organic content that you're pushing on your profiles, right? Across Facebook and Instagram and anywhere else. It's not fancy creative ads either. You can do this on a low budget as well. And it doesn't have to be expensive television commercials. You can do spot buys if you want to. You can produce something that's really straightforward, that doesn't require a huge budget, and maybe just purchase 15-second spots in key markets where you want to be seen. Some real life examples here. So remember, this is the protein-packed, nutritious energy drink that we want to become the highest selling drink in the Southeast. So you might look at some of these magazines, like Atlanta Magazine, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Maybe you'll do some digital ads there. Brickell Magazine is one that's based here in South Florida. When we talk about the Postal Service, this is direct mail. It's an old school tactic and it works. If you've got a product to sell that is readily available, maybe in a very particular space and geographic area, direct mail really does work well. Google Ads, of course, and it's a fantastic tool as well. And then there are several tools that you can use to help you manage your paid marketing plan. Meta, Hootsuite, Sprout Social, HubSpot. There are a ton out there, but these are just some of the top ones. Sergio, am I missing anything? Am I good?
You're great.
Okay. Earned. Earned is a space that most people just call PR. At Census, we call it amplification. Earned is typically pitching a journalist your story. You're not paying the journalist. You're not, paying for an ad in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. You're actually building a relationship with a reporter. You're sending him an email or her an email, and hoping that they'll pick up your story because it's an interesting one and it's relevant. It's engaging with influencers. It's not paying them. So this is what I meant by long lead. Sometimes pitching journalists takes a really long time. You might pitch them 3 or 4 times before they say, oh, you know what? This angle actually works. Let me write a story about this. There's a local angle that I can capture here. So they'll write a story about you. Engaging with influencers, same thing. You're not going to get picked up the first time that you send a huge influencer a box full of your product. They might thank you over email, but probably not very likely that they're going to post about it. I feel like some of the micro influencers maybe are more inclined to do that. And then that's how you start building a relationship, right? It's almost like a courting phase. So that's something to think about, that you're at least building a relationship there. You're getting the buzz out. Speaking engagements is fantastic for building your reputation and positioning yourself as a leader in the space. What earned is not, is expecting a reporter to cover you without a relevant news angle. There are less and less reporters every day. Newsrooms are shrinking. It's really difficult to get a story right now. As you know, the media is a machine. It's a 24-hour news cycle. And there are certain things that take up a lot of space and a lot of things that don't. Writing your own blog is not considered earned, even though you may feel like you earned it because you wrote it. that would be an owned product there. And then paying for brand placement anywhere. So if you're paying for an influencer or sponsoring an event, that would not be considered earned. Okay.
And you really want to do your homework on this, as Karina was saying, right? So you do not, if you have a beef jerky product, you're not going to send it to a journalist whose beat is all about super healthy and vegan type of things, right? So do your homework ahead of time to increase your chances of it actually getting heard, and then have a conversation of curiosity.
Right. Yeah. So some real life examples here. This was a story that I found on energy drinks that are not Red Bull, right? Ranked. So a lot of publications have an editorial calendar, and you could go in, you can go into their media tab and look for an editorial calendar. You see what they're covering in January, February, March, all through the year. And if you know that they're going to be covering coffee flavored drinks in October, then that's the time for you to pitch your coffee flavored drink. If you know they're going to be publishing a list of top drinks for working out and fitness, then that's when you pitch. And there's usually a deadline associated with that. It's usually for advertising, but I would use that same deadline for earned as well. Find out who the reporter is that's drafting that list. Maybe find last year's list, see who wrote it, reach out to them directly, send an email. I've chased down reporters on LinkedIn, on X. So any way you can reach a reporter. They almost always have their email listed on the website somewhere. But that's a great way to know what's coming and to pitch them in a way that's relevant. Speaking engagements, you see some conferences here listed. These are some great ones. See if it makes sense for you. Look at who's attending. Is there a speaking opportunity that you are absolutely perfect for? Is there a panel that you should be on? Oftentimes, they want you to sponsor somehow, but I always call and see if I can get my client on a panel or a speaking engagement. They may not give the keynote, to someone who isn't sponsoring or who isn't a huge name, but getting on a panel or in a few workshops is always beneficial too. And then engaging influencers. And this is important in curating who it is that you're looking for and who can carry your brand and wear your brand as a badge, right? Really well. So make sure that you're curating that list properly. And when it comes to shared, I like to say that shared is social. So your social networking online, your social networking in person as well. It's not just Instagram posts. This is about community and partnerships. This is distribution. This is promotion. So what we call engagement marketing at Senses is when maybe we're offering promotional coupons or hosting an event at a high traffic area to build a brand and get our client's name out there. What it's not is paying for advertisement. It's not taking an ad out in the local chamber and hoping you get some sales. It's not getting a story in the local news. And it's not just coupons. It's actually going out there and engaging with your consumer, being social. Some examples here, every market has different ones, and depending on the industry, you'll need to find where your audience is. That's one thing that I always say in marketing. Understanding where your audience is and pitching interesting stories is probably the most important thing to understand when you're marketing to your consumer. You can demonstrate your expertise and your knowledge through social networking. So it's not just posts pushing your brand, but it's also posts about where the product is made, how it's made. Going back to strategy, thinking about what differentiates you, what makes you unique, and making sure that those posts are reflecting that as well. Okay. So moving on to owned. People seem to struggle with this one a little bit because it's content that you own, and you can say, well, I own all the posts that I put on LinkedIn. Not really. It's more, you own your blog, you own your website, you own your newsletter. It's when you are publishing it yourself and connecting directly to the consumer. You're not using another channel to get to your consumer. So think about hosting your own event. If you think of CrossFit, they've got Wadapalooza, right? Which is the workout of the day festival that happens here in South Florida every year. That's a CrossFit event. That's not an event that CrossFit sponsors. They put that on themselves. If you think about, books authored by you and developing any kind of content that is uniquely your own, where you can say, I wrote this, especially in a newsletter, as an example, that's content that you own. What it's not is a booth at a conference. Yes, that is a way to get your brand out there, but you are just a participant at a bigger event. It's not an article that a journalist wrote about you. The journalist wrote it. You didn't. So you don't have too much control over the messaging and how you are presented, right, to your audience. An influencer endorsement, that influencer owns that post. That's third party ambassadorship, right? That's somebody that's speaking on your behalf. It's not you speaking for yourself. So some examples here, newsletter. I always have this MailChimp logo because it's a great tool and a great resource to use. Lift Like a Girl is an example of a newsletter that goes out. So this is written by a woman Nia Shanks, who's a fitness trainer. She's building her own brand, right? And this is a great way for her to get her content out there herself. Case studies, I included Haywell here as an example. They are an adaptogenic drink and have a really beautiful way of presenting themselves in their about section and how they came to be and talking about their founders. It's a blog post, so this is something that you post on your own website. And this was an example here that I found from a successful life coach. What are the 7 key areas of focus when it comes to coaching? So it's information that you uniquely have and that you are putting out. So going back to the basics, right? I've thrown a lot at you with the PESO model. So what's the very first step? Creating a plan, creating that outline. What are your objectives? What do you want to achieve? That's the big headline. The goals are always measurable and they're on a timeline. The strategy is how will you do this? What's going to differentiate you? And then some of the tactical examples, and we could list hundreds here, but that's why the PESO model really helps, because you can kind of prioritize them and put them into their categories, right? And you want to make sure you have a little bit in each space. So put it in order of priority based on your business goals. Do you need something immediate? Maybe paid and owned is the way to go. If you're really looking to build your brand and you've got some runway, then think about earned and shared. But always have that strategic plan in place and always have your audience in mind. Always make sure you know who you're talking to. So some examples here, right? When you put these tactics together. Instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to put some LinkedIn posts up. No, make sure you've got a plan. Twice weekly minimum, maybe twice weekly on Facebook, depending on your audience. Put a note on your calendar, whatever you need to do. I always say it's great to have an editorial calendar for yourself. You can do this quarterly. Think about what you're going to focus on per quarter, per season, maybe depending on your product. And set goals for yourself, like at least 2 posts per week minimum. Consider boosting when you're thinking about paid. Boosting social media posts is probably the least expensive route, along with Google Ads. But this is a really great way to get your name out there and start becoming recognized. When it comes to social, attending at least 1 event per month, maybe 1 per quarter. Maybe be really precise and curate the organizations that you want to be a part of. Make sure that they ladder up to your goals and objectives. And don't just pay for the registration, but make sure you're actually attending, work the room. And if you're not that person, hire somebody to do that for you. Just to make sure that you're getting out there, because there are, it makes a difference when you start seeing the same people at the different conferences every year. You remember that person down the road when you need something. So it's important to get out there. Touch points, those one-on-one emails, set up Zoom calls, set up one-on-one meetings with folks. Maybe there's a procurement person that you're interested in meeting or speaking to that you met at a conference. Even if it takes 6 emails, send the email every couple of weeks, and eventually you'll get that coffee meeting or that Zoom call, and maybe a few years or however long down the road, you'll actually be at Whole Foods, right? So those are some of the examples that I wanted to call out. And I just saw, because I'm sharing my screen, I just saw that there are some questions in the chat that we'll address after the call, after the presentation. One thing I wanted to also call out is measuring effectiveness. So at Census, everything we do is data driven. We don't just throw a plan out there. We look at our audience, we understand who our audience is, and we develop strategies that are relevant for our intended audience. And like Sergio said, review your marketing plan regularly, put it on the calendar. If you need an accountability coach for this, it could be your best friend, your spouse, to just remind you on the 3rd Monday of every month, hey, did you look at your marketing plan? Are you reaching your goals? Did you check those Google ads? Are they really working? What's the click-through rate? You know, questions like that. Make sure that you're asking yourself that at least monthly. So yeah, reviewing your goals regularly, imperative. And then some considerations: social media engagement, social media reach. So has your following increased? Website traffic. This is critical too. That's something you should probably look at weekly. Who's looking? Where are they looking from? What part of the country? You know, anything at all that you can find through website traffic. Conversion rates, of course, it's something we all track. And sales. Hopefully you see sales increase as you implement your marketing plan. So this kind of sums it up, the building the plan and how to implement. Hope I provided enough examples for you guys, but this is really a kind of bird's eye view of how you can put a marketing plan into practice and build your brand and get your brand out there and noticed. So.
Excellent.
Right. I'm going to jump in here and start some questionings with about 15 minutes left, if that's okay, because I think are we at the end, Sergio? Karina?
We sure are. It's time for
Okay.
Q&A. Yes.
I'm gonna start off with a couple of quick questions. You know, when I think about a brand image and persona versus, you know, selling a product, I think about, you know, the old car companies, even current car companies. You know, Lexus stands for quality, but they market, you know, a high-end sports car. You know, they just developed a new, you know, between level SUV for the soccer mom kind of person. You know, they have the reliable SUV for someone like me, or you know, standard sedan. You know, everybody knows LVMH and Hermes stand for luxury, but their market may be, high end 45 to 55-year-old ladies, or, you know, whatever the target market is. Is there a difference in how you use and where you should use your earned and shared and paid and owned, for which topic you're trying to convey? I am a brand of great standing. I do this in the public. I provide quality, versus I have this gummy bear I'm selling to a certain individual who needs energy and protein.
Right. That's a great question. And yeah, we're actually working with a client right now who is going to be doing a limited time offer. So that's something that's only available for a few months. And I would argue that when you're building your brand reputation, so we'll stick with Lexus, dependable luxury is what I would say Lexus is, right?
Right.
I think earned and shared is really good for that. And you should probably have paid like all year round with that message, even if it's not your entire budget. Maybe that's like 25% of your paid budget is honing in on that key message to really build your brand and build your reputation. But when you have a limited time offer, and it's a flash sale, then I would argue that paid is probably the best way to go because it's the fastest way to get out there. Yes, of course you should pitch it to press. Doesn't mean you shouldn't, but you're much more likely to reach more consumers through paid. So that's where you hone in on digital advertising, TV advertising, radio, streaming, whatever the case may be, to really drive that kind of urgency for your consumer. So yeah, that's how I would think about those two.
And I'm going to tag on one last question before we go to the
Uh-huh.
questions in the Q&A.
Mhm.
So is it safer? Maybe it's the word. Safer that when I think about the brand image, the brand persona, that I am in control of that message
Mhm.
versus it's being, that message is being interpreted by someone else, or that someone could actually, change that message and make it a negative message. And I
Right.
think of,
Right.
brands that have fallen apart in some ways, like Bud Light and others.
Yeah.
Is that like important to think about when you're thinking about, who I want to be in the public?
Absolutely. There's a reason why there's a quiet period before an IPO. And it's when you don't talk to press. So yeah, when you can control the message, of course it's safer. But when you get the cover of the Wall Street Journal and it's singing your praises, there is no money that can pay for that.
Right.
So yes, paid is safer, it's less risky, and you do control the message. But once you're stable and you feel like you've got you don't even have to be stable. Once you know you have a good product and you're really firm in your reputation and in your offering, earned and shared, I think really just have higher value when it comes to audience and how
It's
you're
more meaningful to the consumer.
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. We do have a couple of questions. I don't know, Sergio or Karina, can you read this first one?
Oh.
Concerning being able to do a charitable tag on to an existing product in order to help drive sales and support a legitimate cause. Are these, is this something you can speak to?
I can start with that one.
Sure.
So with this one, it's really the short answer is yes, but it depends. Okay. And it's really based on what is your price point, who's your core consumer, right? But it's all around the story and the storytelling that you're going to be able to weave around this. And it has to come from a place of authenticity and a lot of genuineness and to put it within the context of your core demographic, right? So yes, obviously we've heard about Tom shoes that you buy one, they give one pair, and the socks as well. So you have to figure out the way to nuance that and to balance that message. And you may want to, if you can, start testing it out with some of your existing customers to see how they would feel about that. And obviously to figure out the appropriate messaging and how you message that on your website, through your newsletters, on LinkedIn or Instagram, et cetera, et cetera.
And the only thing I will add that from the investor perspective, be very, very careful about your cost margins, and how you're doing that. Because I've known brands that have had supported wonderful causes and have
Mhm.
tried to make it part of their, of their brand persona, their
Mhm.
brand image, and they were valuable, but the metrics didn't work out from an investor perspective. So make sure that you understand that positioning of yourself, what you want, and that you actually have the ability to support it in a way that's going to be beneficial long term to the brand and long term to the charity that you want to that you want to support.
Yeah.
Perfect.
There was another question, a little bit more.
Tactical.
Yeah, there are a couple more tactical questions. One was, do you think AI will replace influencers, and I'll add in bloggers and even create the fake influencers, okay,
Mhm.
that might be out there? Are these things that you're thinking about or worrying about right now?
Yeah, definitely something that we're thinking about. I think AI should be considered a tool. not something that's going to replace us. But I think influencers are using AI to help them with their posts and content and that sort of thing. So it's a tool that influencers are using. Are there going to be fake influencers in the future? Yeah, probably. Do you need to pitch those fake influencers? Yeah, probably. So right now they're real human beings and they're people that you can talk to and pick up the phone and call and that sort of thing. But in the future, you're going to have to figure out how to connect and use AI influencers. And it really depends on your product, right? If you think about your brand, is it on brand for you to align yourself with a fake influencer? Yes or no? If you are very forward thinking, innovative, high tech kind of brand, maybe. But I would argue that for the most part, most people or most brands are not that right now. So
And
it depends.
And the way you want to think about it as well is you don't want to take it at face value. So I would urge all of you to become kindergartners again and start playing around with AI and start testing it and seeing all of that. And once you've done that, you'll get a sense for when does it look real, when is it not, what it could be. I mean, I'm sure all of you have seen now all these famous action figures that are being popping up all over the place. That's all AI. Is that good? Is that bad? Is that authentic? Does that add or take away from your brand? It depends.
There's a, I have one more question, but there was one last question here about getting your Instagram account unhacked. Okay, is there any advice you could offer to someone who's lost their Instagram account and is looking to get it restarted?
I have a short one. Yes, Angela, I'm very sorry to hear that. Hopefully, you live in a large metropolitan city that has a Meta office. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to reach out to an account executive there and let them know that you want to advertise and then develop a relationship with them and then tell them about your problem. And hopefully, he or she can help you solve it.
Sorry, I unmuted because it's faster. I did go to Meta in New York. I live in New Jersey. Last week, security wouldn't even talk to me. Then he gave me a form to follow, to take a screenshot, whatever. I told him I did all that. And I don't know what else to do because it's hurting my business.
Yeah, it takes some time. Unfortunately, they need to review and get back to you. But I was going to ask if you've filled out all the forms. There is like a service page that you can go onto, and there's a path to follow. You've done all that, I assume?
The only thing I could find was several emails that I wrote to Instagram and Meta, and the hacker wrote me on WhatsApp from Nigeria, and I did all the screenshots, and it's really bad because I have a food business and I'm in Whole Foods, and it's, I advertise mainly on Instagram, but anyhow, I did everything I could about forms and stuff. I didn't see anything like that. And as you can imagine, it's really bad. Yeah, I appreciate anybody. I tried. The security wouldn't even let me go in. Actually, someone was walking out. That's how I was able to go in the building.
I'm sorry to hear that, Angela. What I was suggesting is that you become a Sherlock Holmes and you go on LinkedIn and you found an account executive that works at Meta and befriend them online and then tell them your situation. Try that.
That's very good advice. Thank you. I didn't even. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are close to time here. Angela, I hope you can figure it out. And if I come across anybody who has an Instagram in, I will let you know. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Other than that, I want to thank Sergio and Karina for being here today, taking part in this. And the slides will be available along with a recording. And we will get that out probably, well, maybe not this week, but soon next week. That'll be circulated so that everyone can have that. So again, if I put all the information in the chat there, if you need to reach out to Sergio or Karina, please do. You need to reach out to us at Brandjectory. Again, it's tom@brandjectory.com is the easiest way to reach us. And certainly look forward to seeing everyone here on a future webinar with us. So Sergio and Karina, thank you again. We're very grateful for your time today, and I hope this has been good for you too. And thanks everyone, and have a great day. And if I don't talk to people during the rest of the week, have a great rest of the week too. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. We look forward to hearing from you. Be well. Take care.